We know that there is a new element to the trip for 25. Tell us about that new element.
So we saw a lot of feedback, and there's probably maybe 8-10 cities in the US and say North America, for the sake of this conversation, we could go, but a number of people mentioned Canada, specifically Toronto, and we took some sounders. We got a great response. We know push and pull. We know the Irish representation in Canada and the current relations, which I know you're going to talk about now, are really, really strong. It was a big factor. But just the newness of it, going to a country, G7 country, with very strong. If you're going to go anywhere outside the US, Canada would seem a natural option to go. So we're getting a really, really positive response. And this was obviously pre the US election. People say maybe we're balancing our destinations for investment, and maybe we are to an extent inadvertently, but we see it as transatlantic. Ireland, Canada, and Ireland, US have different, maybe similar but different relations, and just so happy to partner with the Irish Canada Business Association.
Deirdre Giblin, Director of Development and External Engagement at National College of Ireland and the Chair of the Ireland Canada Business Association.
So we just heard Adie refer to you there. Tell me a little bit about what it is that you guys do aside from the involvement with Gateway.
So the Ireland Canada Business Association was set up back in the 70s, and it was all about promoting bilateral trade, obviously, between the two countries. It's been a solid relationship between the two countries, but it really took off in recent times with the Prime Minister Trudeau's visit. Then we've seen so many trips back and forward, and the political does impact the business, and the diplomatic impacts the business as well. And I think we did a lot of lobbying around direct flights. That's always a big issue. You can't have business without direct flights. We also lobbied for Enterprise Ireland and the IDA to have the boots on the ground that you spoke about earlier. Really important. Canada does not like being serviced from the US. A little bit like we wouldn't like being serviced from the UK. So that was one of our, I think, big achievements, helping lobbying for that. We have a fantastic Team Ireland in Canada. We are so thrilled with them, the work that they do. And in particular, Adie and myself are huge fans of Deirdre Moran, who runs the IDA out there. Deirdre was in Silicon Valley beforehand. She totally gets it, and one of the best that we have out there in that scene. So from a business perspective, we bring a trade mission every 2 years over. Last time it was Toronto and Vancouver. This year it's Toronto and partnering with the Gateway to Europe guys. And one of the big things why I wanted to do this was because of Newstalk, Jess, would you believe that? Because I said to myself, because I always listen to when you're over in Boston and the different places, and if I had heard those lads going over to Canada without me, there would have been war, absolute war. So in all seriousness, I would know Adie and the team through our work with National College of Ireland and the relationship with the Recruitment Federation, and getting to know how good they are at promoting Ireland and the relationship piece. This is all about relationship building. Everything else comes second. You've seen that from the trips that you've been on before. So we're very good at that as well. We think the combination is going to be fantastic this time around. And our kind of schedule for the few days, we're only going to be there for 3 days in Toronto, but we've got a country-to-country business relationship that does 10 billion in trade. That is not to be sneezed at in a world where we need to diversify. Post-elections everywhere. Canada will go through its own series of elections the next while as well, but we are so alike as countries, culturally, politically, and the history. And I've said it to your colleague Kieran before around this whole thing about, we go back to the famine. 38,000 people arrived on the shores of Toronto in 1847 when they had 20,000 people there. Huge. We were taken in, we were looked after. The relationships are very deep. And when you speak to somebody who is of Irish extraction in Canada, that the depth of that relationship comes into the business relationship too.
And tell me a little bit about the big industries there. So the last year we were, as I said, in Austin, and I've been to Austin a few times, and I know that there's so much going on in terms of cybersecurity, in terms of manufacturing, in terms of a whole host of tech sectors are basing themselves there. When we look at Toronto, is it, a pharma town, a fintech town? What kind of vibe is it?
Yeah, it would definitely be financial services with the fintech piece. It would be law is big with the kind of the tech that comes behind the reg tech type thing there. You would also then will have your pharma, your life sciences, your biosciences, and you also have a very big film and media piece. And across Canada, that is the case, in Vancouver as well. We were in Toronto and Vancouver last time. I learned an awful lot about the amount of sound stages that they have that service Hollywood. And you look at programs like Suits, that wasn't filmed in New York. That was filmed in parts of Toronto, parts of Vancouver. So they really service their American neighbour very well. When you look at the trade that we do in Ireland and Canada, it's across many, many sectors. There is the small bits of the mining and the geoscience, etc., which really are into financial services, law and tech as our main.
And in terms of the vibrancy, because we know that over the last few years, with all the geopolitical change that has gone on, certain parts of the world are feeling the pinch a little bit more. We know that the cost of living is a huge issue here on the ground. How has Canada and Toronto in particular fared over the last wee while?
They would have the same squeeze that we have. I would say they're very similar to where we're at. You will see politically, Prime Minister Trudeau came out in the last few weeks basically addressing the immigration issue. Canada has always been open to all, hence the Irish influence there. But they've come in under internal pressure, like a little bit like has happened here, where they're saying, okay, maybe we have to be more stringent, maybe we have to be more jobs orientated, etc. So there's a little bit of a tightening that's happening there, but not so much as in other places globally.
Yeah, that was Deirdre Giblin, Director of Development and External Engagement at the National College of Ireland and the Chair of the Ireland-Canada Business Association.